Hi, Amy. So can you tell me a little bit about your background in bioengineering and just an overview of your career so far?
Yeah, sure. So I went to University of Louisville in Kentucky and got my master's in engineering and bioengineering. During my undergrad time, we had mandatory co-ops built into our program. And so those co-ops were at three different places. And then when I graduated, I moved to Los Angeles and started working at St. Jude Medical at the time. Since then, they've been acquired by Abbott. So I started in the mechanical development group as like a temporary position, and then started full time in the development quality group. And then this summer, I switched jobs, and so I'm working in Santa Rosa now at a smaller medical device company doing quality engineering there. So since it's smaller, kind of all of quality engineering sort of tasks.
Awesome. Okay, so can you tell me a little bit about your co-op and your experience at each of those three different jobs?
Yeah, so the co-op was 1 semester long, every other semester for the last 6 semesters of undergraduate. So I started out at a biotech company doing research and development sort of stuff there. And then the last two I did at like an academic research institute that was associated with the university. During those co-ops, I realized like the research side of things, especially like the academic research side of things, is just not for me. I found that it was just having experiments not work over and over, even though you keep trying different things, was just not for me. I didn't find it fun, and the like, oh yes, this finally worked, like didn't outweigh it for me. But I think it's okay because there's obviously two sides to it. There's like the academic side and then like the industry side of job options.
So after you finished your co-op, can you tell me about your internship at St. Jude Medical and how you got that job?
Yeah, I honestly was just looking for a job at that point. I finished my degree and was um, living in LA and just needed a job, and they had an intern program, and so I was like, okay, like that's an opportunity to kind of get my foot in the door and see if this is the type of job that I want, if these are the types of people that I want to work with, if this is right for me. And so I took it as, at first it was like a 6 month thing um, in the mechanical development group there, doing a lot of um, test method design and test method validation. And so a lot of the tests I was working on were related to like electrical or high voltage sorts of tests. And then also the other side of it were some mechanical exposure tests, and then some like mechanical loading tests. So we did like some tensile and compression tests as well. But part of what I was working on with the test method design was making sure that no matter who's running the test or when they're running it, what equipment they're using, whatever, they'll get the same results as someone else running it a year from now, or just a different person running it who may try to set it up differently. So removing any sort of variability, so the test is always giving you consistent results.
About your transition from your internship to your full-time position.
So I ended up staying in the mechanical development group. Actually, it started out as just 6 months, but I ended up staying there for just a little bit over a year, and then transitioning to an open full-time position that was in the development quality group. So a lot of the stuff that I was doing in the rest of my time in the mechanical development group was similar to what I was doing before, lots of test method stuff. And then a lot of that, because I was like really familiar with it at that point, sort of carried over into my time as development quality engineer.
Tell me a little bit about your role as a development quality engineer when you're at St. Jude.
Yeah. So the products that we were working on at that site of St. Jude were our pacemakers and implantable defibrillators. So implantable battery-powered devices were kind of my focus there. And there's international standards. There's groups of people from different companies and different countries that sit together and draft standards for, these are the sorts of generic rules that all mechanically powered implantable devices need to follow. And so there were these generic standards, and then some more for here's the requirements for what the label needs to say, here's the requirements for the way that it operates, or the way, you know, a lot of different compatibility standards as well for pieces that fit together with it, or if you want to do other tests while you have this device implanted, those sorts of things. So there's those requirements, and then there were internal requirements that were designed based on, you know, like marketing may say, like, we want it to weigh less than this. We want the volume to be less than this because that makes it easier to sell it. Or they might say, like, or the development group might say, like, we want it to be able to withstand this sort of load because in a clinical scenario, that's what it would see when it's being implanted, or during some sort of catastrophic event even. So there were internal requirements and then external requirements. So a lot of my job in the development quality group was making sure that the device, while it's being developed, is meeting those requirements. So during like more of the development phase at the beginning, we would do lots of like feasibility studies, or studies to like, here's the requirement, let's test it that way, but like take it until it fails to see sort of what our separation between when it fails and what our requirement is. Like, we don't want to just be like want a hair over it because like that's a little too close for comfort. So if changes needed to happen, the development team would make those adjustments or whatever. So there were those tests during the development phase, and then sort of at the end of, once the design is all set and everything's all good to go, the final check of making sure, like, okay, yeah, we're still meeting the requirements when we test it all. And then those were the reports that were submitted to regulatory bodies to show that our device is in compliance with internal standards and external standards.
So you got a new job. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about that role?
Yeah. So since it's a lot smaller company, my role is a little bit more widespread, because my last at Abbott, there were like 8 people in my group doing my job with me, and then here there's 40 people in the entire company. So as you can guess, it's probably much different, like day-to-day activities, like sort of like scope of everything that you're responsible for. So my new job, I'm working in the quality group still, but right now we're receiving a lot of product, so I'm responsible for making sure, or help responsible for making sure that we're receiving good product and that we're building it in to make good product. And so I'm more focused on the manufacturing side of things. I should be shifting over to more like DQ stuff in the next few months, but yeah, it will be interesting doing like both sides of it at the same time, which I know is how a lot of companies do it. So I'll just be, I don't know, it's intimidating, but I'm excited for it.
I think also, like, when you see the manufacturing line and you know all the flaws that occur there, you can bring it back to development and development quality, and like use that as feedback because you know the product being built. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm so happy for you, Amy.
Oh,
This
thanks.
is really good. Yeah. Okay, so Amy, you wanted to talk about some tips that you wish you knew earlier on in your career. Do you mind sharing that?
Sure. Yeah, I think when I was like kind of starting out, I didn't realize that there were just some things that I was like, oh, I wish like someone told me that, or I wish like I knew that way before I found it out. It's like one of those things like we were kind of talking about a little bit earlier, like those like unspoken rules of places, or like things that it's like everyone somehow knows, but you didn't. And so one of those like that was kind of like shocking to me was I was talking to a former coworker, and he was talking about asking for a promotion, and I was like, wait, you have to ask for a promotion? I thought you just got a promotion when you like deserved it, or I thought it was just handed to you. I didn't know it was one of those things you need to like let your manager know that you're like, you feel like you're ready for a promotion, or you feel like you are capable of doing the job level above what you're doing or something like that. Um, so that was just one of those things that kind of came to mind, like thinking about, what if I known sooner? I wonder how things would be different, or if things would be different.
Yeah, I definitely get that. I think that it wasn't, I also didn't really know that you had to ask for promotion until more like into a few years into my career. I was like, oh yeah, I should
Yeah.
probably do that. Yeah. And
um,
yeah,
and then like one other thing that like since the company I'm working for is really small right now, we're interviewing a lot of people and like constantly have new candidates in, and so I'm getting a lot more exposure to like the other side of the interview process, rather like not the interviewee side, but like the like hearing people talk about like what the candidates that come in, and some of the things like I thought might be helpful for people to hear. And so like one of the ones that kind of shocked me was like someone was like, yeah, they didn't even bring in like a notepad and pen. Like it's like, okay, so I like something really easy, like take notes. Like one person came in and she was like jotting some notes down, and they were like really impressed that she was taking notes. I have no idea what she was writing down, but she was like taking notes, and they were just like blown away by that. So just like the simple act of like listening and trying to remember things, if there's something you want to ask later, taking a note, or like if they're explaining something to you that you think is helpful, write it down.
do you have any other unspoken rules that you can think of that would be helpful?
I think maybe this one isn't like an unspoken rule but it's one of those things where it's like, oh, maybe if I like took advantage of that, it'd be better. But like, like you always hear like max out your 401k the first few years, like, you're used to living like a college student. And I think there is a lot to that. I think like, especially when you're young, like that grows so fast. By the time that you're retired and you're ready to use it, I think your old self will think your young self.
Definitely.
You're responsible.
Yeah, especially when company matches like at a certain percentage.
Totally, yeah.
Free money, basically. Thanks so much, Amy, for telling me about bioengineering and about your career.